Hello, Cheeches and Chongs, coming to you from where I parked my car in Burbank, California. This is the Film versus Film podcast, the only, as far as I know, competitive movie podcast where we pit two films against one another to determine which is better suited to a specific prompt. Today we're discussing stoner movies. I am your straight edge co-host, Quinn Boys. I have forgotten over 12 stoner movies in my lifetime, and I'm joined as always through a cloud of purple smoke by my co-host, Leonard Smith Jr. Leonard? You need a minute?
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Leonard, not Lenny, Smith Jr. Hey, and it's the moment I've been waiting for. That's right.
This is the moment it feels like you were born to record this episode
Born to record
this podcast.
Yes.
Did you practice for this episode, or is that defeating the purpose of this episode?
No.
Yeah.
You don't practice.
No.
For stoner, okay? Not for stoner movies, man. You just do it, man.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it. And I've been just doing it. I'm pretty fucking stoned right now.
I guess you could argue you've been practicing for the past 20 years.
What you call practice, I call life.
To keep us on pace, maybe not to keep us on pace, but to join us at least and help.
Oh, he's going to keep us on pace.
Discuss these two films. We have a special guest again this week. We are joined by Austin Kress. Austin, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to be trapped in this smoke-filled room with you guys. It's a dream come true.
And as usual, I've selected a film. Leonard has selected a film. We're going to get into them. Why don't you go first, Leonard? I will be a gentleman. What was your pick this week?
Oh, man. This was like one of the toughest weeks for me because there's so many options.
There's a million options.
I just imagine you like on draft day, like if you're an NFL GM, you just got like the big board and you're just moving things over. It's like, what's the number one overall pick?
And I had a lot of choices, Big Lebowski, Half Baked. Really, Pineapple Express. It was really hard not to pick How High. How High is just like classic for me. I love it. I've watched it many a times, and but I had to go with one that I know is my top choice, and that could possibly win me this episode, and that was Super Troopers. Now, black guy choosing a movie about cops.
I will say I was a little bit surprised that we talk a lot about comedic influences or touchstones for us, and I don't think we've ever talked about Super Troopers, so I was surprised.
Yeah. It's kind of funny if you look through these DVDs here in my room. I own all the Broken Lizard movies, like Puddle Cruiser, Beer Fest. It's weird. So when I was younger, I just really was into Broken Lizard, just this
super fan
group. What's that?
You're a super fan.
I was not a super fan.
You own all their movies.
You named
a couple movies I haven't heard of. I know Super Troopers. I know they recently made Super Troopers 2, which I have not seen. Oh. And I saw Beer Fest. Beer League. And that's it.
Beer Fest is hilarious.
Yeah, I don't mind Beer Fest. I'm just saying, you're telling me you're not a super fan and you name Puddle Cruiser. I've never heard of that.
Puddle Cruiser is their first movie.
Okay.
It's like them in college and shit. And it's pretty good. It's all right. And there's one where there's a serial killer on an island, and I can't remember the name of it, and I can't see it right
now. Club Dead or something? Club Dread, maybe, yeah.
Something like that. It's pretty funny, too. They're just they're kind of like slapstick kind of comedy movies. They get a little bit more goofy, each film, and, but, they have that show, Ladder 40, or what is it called?
Station 49.
Station 49, I haven't watched it, but, they're funny guys. But anyway, so I watched this movie for the first time before I even ever smoked weed. I was in 10th grade. And I would have never been exposed to this movie on my own, but I was back in North Carolina visiting my mom for Christmas time or something like that. And I left North Carolina after 6th grade, but my best friend in 6th grade, we still were friends. Andy and Joe John, twin brothers.
Shout out the twin brothers.
Yeah,
shout out the John brothers.
Nuclear, upper mid class white family. Dad's a judge and shit. Cool ass family, man. They fucked with me heavy, and I was back visiting them, and we were at one of their friends' house, and I think they were partying. Maybe some people were drinking. I wasn't doing anything. I was just very square at the time, and we put on Super Troopers, and I was like crying. Like I was crying laughing at this movie. And once I started smoking weed and watched it again, it was like it got even better. And like I severely enjoyed this movie when I watched it last night. I was dying.
There's good rewatch value too in like the nuances of the lines, and once
the writing is so good.
Yeah.
It's like
it's tight. There's tight
It's
jokes.
like it's funny on so many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the perfect movie, I think, to be introduced to as a, however old you were, 13, 14, 15, like as a early teenage boy, because it's directed to you.
Exactly.
And I don't mean that as a put down, because I agree. It does hold up better, I think, than other movies that I enjoyed at this, like your Van Wilders or something, where I go back and watch it now and I'm like, this is mostly gross out gags. It's not really that clever. There's a little bit more to this movie that I think holds up from like a comedic bits premise, and I think the fact that Broken Lizard is like a comedy troupe of 5 guys that are all very tight with one another and have good timing with one another, that kind of keeps it above water a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
But then they went for the money grab for Super Troopers 2.
Oh my God, Super Troopers 2 was my worst experience in the theaters I've ever had.
I know nothing about Super Troopers 2 other than that they crowdfunded it. It was like it was like a, what's that site called? Kickstarter, yeah, and they like got the budget to do it, and then I heard nothing else about it.
They also apparently crowdfunded all the writing and just picked random submissions.
I watched the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then I was like, nah, I'm good. I literally, this was like from like 10th grade until I was like 23, 24. Super Troopers, if you asked me what my favorite movie was, I would give you that answer.
When it's because rewatching it as I did, like it's and what I this is also not to put down, like there's a very loose plot. It's like the cops, they're highway patrol, they don't want to lose their unit because they might be disbanded and they'll let the state police take over. But like it's basically just a vehicle for like different comedy bits, which you would expect from a movie that was written by a comedy troupe that probably just had, and it's like I get what you're saying, Leonard, watching a movie about cops, but cops are also in a comedy movie great for like lampooning because they have all the authority, but they can be bumbling and stupid.
They also addressed all the classic cop issues, like abuse of power, being bribed, being corrupt, like sexism. They addressed like the fact that no one gives a shit about marijuana. Like the mayor comes in and is like, why are we here if it's about marijuana? And the cops are like really care about it and put their whole, they address like them giving out tickets to up quotas to keep a certain level of budget for their force. Like that's all real corruption issues that they deal with.
Can't make them speed.
Just the fact that they like had that, it just made it even better. There was like more depth to it. What was that?
He had a great quote from the movie. He was like, I can't make them speed, sir.
They need to up their quota. They need to get, and that is the movie. It's like shenanigans, like liter of cola. There's just a lot of like, if you know the movie, it's one of those if you know situation. It's like you don't.
Liter of cola.
You boys like Mexico? Like there's just one line that kind of recalls the snozberries taste like snozberries, which is a borrowed line, but I would say is now more popular as Super Troopers than Willy Wonka. And it's just, that's what it is. If you're watching it for those moments. And I think, which we'll get into, I don't know why I'm supporting your argument, but like if you're watching a stoner movie, you don't need to be focusing on the plot or like how much money do they need to save and what's the plan. You're just going from gimmick A to gimmick B, and like the scene where they'll pull someone over and they always have running games like saying the word meow as many times as they can, or doing call and repeat where one officer says something then the other officer says the same thing.
Like they're just playing improv games
exactly
on the side of the road. It's great. Now let's go from from my movie to yours. Little pivot. I think there's always room for interpretation of these prompts, right? I did not. I really didn't think this was the way you were going to go, and then when you told me, I was like, of course. Like,
where you tell me first? Where did you think I was going to go?
I thought you were going to go like Harold and Kumar.
Okay.
I don't know why I just thought that.
I haven't actually seen Harold and Kumar.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm surprised you didn't pick The Big Lebowski. I would have pegged you, like seeing like some of your other tastes in other movies. I would have thought you would have picked Big Lebowski.
So I have seen The Big Lebowski. I do enjoy The Big Lebowski, but that's like, try getting high and watching a Coen Brothers movie. I just don't. I think like the Coen Brothers, that to me, and people will likely disagree. The Big Lebowski is about a stoner. I don't know that it's like stoner comedy. And I'm
it's a different level of stoner comedy.
Yeah, like any Austin Powers is a stoner comedy if you get high and watch it, right? But I interpreted this prompt as like we are watching things that are kind of for the express purpose of getting high to watch it, or are about the era of like getting very high. Like you don't have to be high to watch a Cheech and Chong movie, but you're watching a stoner movie because that's that specific kind of comedy. Exactly. And so Dazed and Confused, I think, I will argue, straddles the line between both. I don't think you have to be high to watch Dazed and Confused, but it's taking you back to a weed-soaked era in the mid to late 70s. I think it's like 77 or
76. The summer of 76.
There is so much weed smoking.
Exactly.
There's more weed smoking in Dazed than there is in Super Troopers.
There is.
The haircuts, the music,
the weed shirt.
The weed probably the entire
you get
time.
a contact high just watching this movie. And it's also a movie which is, I'd say, low on plot. Basically, it's just last day of school.
That's a true statement.
It's
low
on plot and high on pot.
That should have been their tagline.
It's the last day of school. It's a vibe movie. I would go so far as
the vibe is a vibe
and I
movie.
think the vibe is
there are some different vibes though.
There's a lot of different vibes in that movie.
Yeah, I mean it's depicting an era, and it's an era that none of us grew up in. And I'm not particularly that nostalgic, but I will say it's interesting. There's a time in the mid '90s, and I would say like around Dazed and Confused, and then into like that '70s show, where as a kid, for me, growing up in the 90s, I felt very well versed in what the cachet of the 70s, what the 70s meant. And it was like getting high in Eric's basement for that 70s show. And it was like driving around in your beat up car, like looking for freshmen to paddle, like whatever the whole thing. I just was like, I get the 70s. Everyone's high. Everyone's listening to like crunchy rock music. And that's the vibe. And I'm not saying that's like, I was like, I need to be in that era. I'm just saying I can appreciate how well that movie seems to be recalling that era. It's directed by Richard Linklater, and written by Richard Linklater, and it has feels like semi-autobiographical. Yeah. So, all of which is to say...
Yeah, people were shitty back then.
Yeah, and it's called Dazed and Confused. I mean, it's about a bunch of stoners and jocks and preppies and cheerleaders and whatever, but that era, to me, I just think of that as a heavy stoner movie.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, you are very correct on that.
A lot of smoke.
I actually didn't see this movie too, so I probably first saw this movie like towards the end of high school, or maybe even going into the beginning of college. So this wasn't a movie that I saw. Like you said, Super Troopers, you saw it and you weren't high. That's true of me as well. I wasn't high when I saw Super Troopers. I was probably like 12 or 13. I wasn't smoking, but it did feel like when I watched it then, because and in middle school. You got friends. Some of your friends have started to smoke. Some of them won't for years. Some of them never will. But it feels like a thing that's like dangerous and kind of exciting. And so people would watch Super Troopers, and would be like, oh man, the snozberries. And I'd be watching it, and I'd be like, I'm missing an element to this. And I'm not putting the movie down, but I'd be like, oh, you're supposed to be high and watch this, and it like unlocks. You see all the colors of the rainbow if you do it that way. So it did. I don't think. Dazed and Confused offers like the same, like you need to be high to kind of get into it or get the jokes, but I think in both ways the enjoyment can be supplemented with some weed. Leonard, I don't know, you have a better take on that than I do.
We were high for both. We watched both these movies high specifically.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to get that experience, that true experience.
All right, well, you tell me then, because I watch these movies sober.
But watching Super Troopers last night, which I've seen fucking dozens of times, and I haven't watched it in years, and I own the DVD, and the person I stole the DVD from this rich white kid who is now dead.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I pulled the DVD.
Did you kill him for it?
Like, his name was on the DVD, and I was like, oh my god, this dude's dead.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I still enjoyed that fucking movie, man.
It overcame the sadness.
That's not a thing I want to, like, get high, pop in the DVD, see the name on the DVD, and be like, my dead friend's DVD. That's a weird starting point.
Well, it's the power of Super Troopers, and it will pull you out of your bad mood into something beautiful.
Literally. I had a great time. It was just fun. It was a fun experience. It was a fun 2 hours. The jokes were great. The bits were great.
Laugh out loud funny. Like both, they had like massive bits, like the cop car pulling them over multiple times, hilarious. And then it zooms off, and they're all like, "Oh, we made it!" And then it just reverses at like 60 miles an hour and stops again. Like just bits that are just like physical comedy with cars. That's so funny.
That opening scene is just like hard to beat.
That's like, I would say like the quintessential stoner scene in the movie
6
too.
6 minutes of the movie, it's like, okay, this is a great stoner.
Movie, yeah.
And it's just, and it's still like, you know, fulfills that throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it comes in very hard, and it's hard to back that up, and they did. And I was laughing throughout. I love all the characters. You know, they're not smoking weed consistently throughout, but
no, the cops are they like to dabble and have fun, but they're not your typical stoner main characters like in a Cheech and Chong movie or Pineapple Express.
And also, it was hard for me not to choose Cheech and Chong. When I first started smoking weed, I loved the Cheech and Chong movies.
Mm-hmm.
When he makes the whole RV out of fucking weed. Oh my God. So he can get it across the border.
That would have been my other one, by the way. You said you thought Harold and Kumar, but if it wasn't Dazed and Confused, I was probably going Pineapple Express. Now I'm thinking about it.
Pineapple Express,
and that may prove to be the wrong move. But
you made the wrong decision. But it's okay. But
there was a character. There's no like. So your main characters, none of them are really. You wouldn't call them stoners. They're cops. Yeah. They have mustaches and they're.
I say one of them is a stoner.
But
they do make jokes about the one guy, about Rabbit.
Okay, Rabbit, yeah.
Because he has the weed in his pocket, and he's like, "Oh, check that later."
And Farva's not a stoner because he's way too on edge all the time, and yeah, exactly.
He's a drunk.
But I would say Dazed and Confused of these two movies has the most prototypical stoner character. That would be Slater, the guy with the long hair and the
pot leaf t-shirt.
Yeah,
Slater was amazing.
Slater's monologue about George Washington being a stoner was hilarious.
I was laughing.
I laughed out loud.
And Matthew McConaughey's not a stoner, but I think his vibe is what a lot of people think they're like when they're high, when you're just sort of hanging out by your high school.
And it was just funny watching it now. I guess we'll get into it, but I just remember like when I was watching it when I was young, and I'm like, man, that dude's so cool. And then now when I watch it, I'm like, dude, this dude is so fucking lame.
Oh yeah,
they did a great job of like, I'd say one of its biggest strengths was they showed the lens of a person that's like in high school or leaving high school, and how you look at anyone that's doing like quote unquote cool stuff. Like he seems so cool, but he's probably 22, 25, like in that world, in that age range. And when you actually get to that age, you're like, oh my God, dude, you got to do something else. Like you can't just be hanging out with high school kids. Like that's
one of those quotes.
That's ridiculous.
It's one of those quotes which, as you get older, you come out on the other side of it. When you're in high school or something and you hear like the McConaughey character, like, that's what I love about high school girls. I get older, they stay the same age. It's like, oh, that I don't know if I ever thought that was cool, but it was like, oh, that's so like, I don't give a shit, whatever. And now I come out of it on the other side. I'm like, oh, that's really lame and sad. And I do give credit to the writer-director of this movie, because I think Linklater, like I said, it feels autobiographical. I don't know if that would mean he's Mitch. I don't know which character that would kind of place him as, but I would say...
I feel like he's the Anthony Rapp character.
Okay.
That was my best guess.
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple that he could be. I think he played sports in high school. I don't know if that would make him like Jason London,
he's the cool quarterback.
I don't know.
He's the cool quarterback.
He's the quarterback, but he's also
Pink.
Like the cool stoner.
Yeah, I don't know who that would make him, but either way, I think he does a good job of like, these are who these people are. They are like, you can like some of them and you can hate some of them. I kind of like at the end, they're all at the same party. That feels very like when you look back at high school, that kind of, the divisions aren't that deep, that it's like these people don't hang out with these people. You see the stoners and the football players kind of get together, even though, yes, there's a lot of bullying and a lot of things that are very problematic by today's standards. But I think he's just presenting it as is. I don't think he's really judging it like, these are the good characters, these are the bad characters, whatever.
All right, well, you know what?
You're going to come for
Let's
it?
get into the first category.
Okay. Pop culture.
If you're listening, we got 5 categories. First one is pop culture.
I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. But yes, pop culture, that's what we just talk about, these movies' overall imprint here in 2020. What do we think about when we think about these movies? What has the stronger imprint? I think we already touched on the big one from Dazed. Other than its young cast, a lot of whom are still working today, and so it launched a lot of
literally Law and Smash. Matthew McConaughey, like his first role, he was discovered by the producers in a bar, and they were like, "Come audition," and he did, and he knocked it out of the park.
Mila Jovovich,
Ben Affleck.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. Obviously, Linklater was his first big movie. He'd made an indie before this, but like, there's a lot of people in this movie still working today, and more so are just even fewer, but a not insignificant number are like big players. Ben Affleck being the biggest, but Linklater obviously went on to be very successful. Mila Jovovich still pops up in movies all the time.
Anthony Rapp was assaulted by Kevin Spacey.
Yep,
unfortunate.
That's something.
Unfortunate.
Jason London, I think, still does things. I remember him from Mallrats not long after this, but it's I think the biggest imprint is. Yeah. Oh, and McConaughey, obviously, but is I stay older, they stay. I get older, they stay the same age. That is when I think of the pop cultural imprint.
Also, all right.
Oh, and all right. I guess
from that.
So why don't we just say Matthew McConaughey in this movie is pop culture, because Matthew McConaughey's whole persona was, maybe the movie took it from him or the movie gave it to him, but either way, that's what it is. It's from this movie.
Yes, absolutely.
Quinn is just so good at just like these metaphors and these.
Do you disagree? I think,
no, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm just like.
Well, and it definitely gave him his type that he could be cast as, or in that kind of world. I mean, he shaved the mustache and got a different haircut, so he was a little more attractive later on. But
I thought he was still a very.
Oh no, he looked great, but that guy's not going to be paired up with Cameron Diaz. They're not going to let that happen.
There's also people from this movie like Sasha Jansen, who plays Dawn. Like a few, like you recognize them by their face, and then Joey Lauren Adams was one of them. And
I literally said that. I was like, they have a bunch of people in this movie where it's like you recognize their face, but you don't know their name.
Adam Goldberg.
It's like they're all working actors now.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay. But you have a very.
We can also talk
for pop. I mean, they're very
stoner pop culture is a kind of a subsection of pop culture. So I feel like I should just cede the floor and let you guys, Leonard, talk about the cultural artifacts.
Like you said earlier.
From Super
Troopers. The
Troopers.
schnozberries taste like schnozberries. Obviously, is a Willy Wonka line, but when I think of it, I think of Super Troopers, and I hear that reference all the time. Liter of fucking cola. There's a bunch of things, but it's more kind of
shenanigans.
What's that?
Shenanigans.
What's that little restaurant? Wait, Farva, what's that restaurant you like where they have all the goofy shit on the walls?
Oh, Shenanigans.
You guys are talking about shenanigans, right? My favorite part of that is always, it's like the underrated part of that scene, and because it's not audible, but it's him handing him the butt of his gun. As if like, you just said it, you got a pistol whip, and he just hands it over to him. Like, come on.
Oh, so good.
Brian Cox in this movie.
Oh my God, Brian Cox is so... Okay, at the end...
Logan Roy himself.
When they all get drunk, every shot where it cuts to Brian Cox, and he's in just the background, maybe he doesn't have any lines even in the shot, his face and hair and like he looks so funny. It just got a laugh out of me every time they cut.
He looked fucking drunk as fuck.
He did
so good.
He may have been method on that take.
All of his lines, it worked out. Delivered perfectly.
It's a genius plan. I don't know if they drew it up or they just got lucky and he auditioned, but like, because Brian Cox, I would say is most famous in America for the last 20 years, kind of Super Troopers and onward. I'm sure he was doing tons of great things before, but like I know him from like the X-Men movies and then a lot of other things, and now Succession. But what a genius idea to have 5 like American knucklehead guys who are kind of acting but kind of also just riffing throughout the whole movie, and then just put this like classically trained Shakespearean actor to play their head of highway patrol, like sergeant, whatever his title is, to just yell at them. It's beautiful. It works perfectly. He's great.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Perfectly.
And Commandant Spangler, I know from my fellow Malcolm in the Middle fan in Leonard, you recognize him as the head of the State Troopers.
Yes. Also another perfect casting. Like he was great. He also like, I mean, Brian Cox overshadowed him, but like he also was great. Like
when he called him back and he was like, "Hey, I've got Benny Baboon and he's in custody."
It was just great.
And he's not giving up anything.
But as far as pop culture, I don't know if it has a huge it just has a cult following. Like for the people who
I had never seen it, but I'd heard the meow reference a million times before I even knew it was from Super Troopers.
You hadn't seen Super Troopers until you watched it for this last? Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it until I watched it for this.
Interesting.
So I had no like nostalgia factor at all. I was just watching it as judgmentally as I could.
Well, that's an interesting thing though. So then if you can, like remember to 48 hours prior or before you had
I'm
seen
not
it.
that high, Quinn. I can remember 48 hours.
But can
prior.
you remember the things that you knew about it that when you watched it, you were like, either, oh, I know that's from this movie and now I see what it is, or like, I didn't even know that was from this movie, but that's what it is. Like, were there things? So Snozzberries was one of them, and then
Snozzberries, I had no idea was referenced in this movie. I mean, Leonard mentioned it, but I had no idea. I knew it was from Willy Wonka though. So it was funny. It was a great like remix.
It was like from Willy Wonka, but that's when like stoner culture took it. I feel like it was Super Troopers, and then now it's a stoner kind of reference. But yeah,
I think just Meow. I don't think anything else. I don't think I knew any other references or any of the other jokes other than Meow.
I also like, it's not really a line. Well, I guess it's a line, but that whole exchange right before the leader of Cola Exchange, where he's just like, we have one large burger. It's for a cop. What does that mean? He's going to spit in it? No, it's so he makes it real good. The guy that plays the guy behind the counter is perfect for that.
Dude, yeah.
Because when he tackled him, he let out the perfect scream.
Was great.
Like
casting was so good.
It was great.
Yeah.
And he's like, you see this burger? It look like you spit in it?
Yeah.
Nah, fuck it. He just takes a bite.
He was like, yeah, it looks like spit.
So I mean, I'm gonna say, as far as pop culture, I feel like Dazed and Confused wins for sure. Like, there's really no.
Dazed and Confused went on to have an impact on pop culture by casting Matthew McConaughey.
Probably our biggest stoner movie star. If we're just being, no shade at Woody Harrelson, but I think Matthew McConaughey he's A1 stoner movie star.
Seth Rogen?
I don't know. Seth Rogen might be the biggest stoner movie
does
star.
Seth Rogen have an Oscar? I mean, yeah.
He was
Seth
nominated.
Rogen is more maybe explicitly known
for Jobs.
Okay, all right.
We're talking about movie stars, right?
He's got some. He's got some competition on that corner.
The number one right now in 2020, the number one weed celebrity.
Well, Brad Pitt and Quentin Tarantino both got stoned a bunch, so much so that Angelina Jolie was mad at them while they were shooting Inglourious Basterds.
That's funny.
So I know Brad Pitt does,
but still,
smoke.
like when you think of,
but I don't think of Brad Pitt exclusively as a stoner because he is so.
For me,
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you have an answer for this?
Or are you going? Wait, sorry. Do you mean most famous person who smoked weed, or most person who's most famous for smoking weed?
For weed.
Then Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg
is
Snoop
the
Dogg.
biggest
Yeah,
stoner.
Snoop Dogg's not a movie star, but yes, I would say
he's
celebrity-wise.
Celebrity-wise.
Celebrity. Yeah.
Celebrity. Yeah. Now, strictly movie star.
It used to be like, oh my God, I can't believe Willie Nelson. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Willie Nelson held that title for a long time.
Willie Nelson may still deserve it. I mean, he's still going strong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it's a new era.
I mean,
I feel like it's Snoop
Seth Rogen, for sure.
For sure.
Woody Harrelson is an awesome. There's one he couldn't park. They didn't want him to drive his van to a late night taping once because it was just a giant van that smelled like weed.
I'm gonna say Wiz Khalifa.
But like, yeah.
Oh, and music, yeah. I mean,
we got a lot of people, but for like people that are just actors or mostly actors that are also known for smoking weed. Yeah, you're right. Woody Harrelson.
Or it's Woody Harrelson or Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey.
Or Seth Rogen.
But Matthew McConaughey is not necessarily known for. I mean, he did say he smoked Snoop Dogg's weed when they made that movie Beach Bum.
What's that movie though? Like
house.
Yeah.
Was he high or was he drunk though?
He was playing the bongos.
That sounds like some drunk shit.
That might have been crossfaded.
There's
no way there wasn't some alcohol involved.
That's true. There's got to be alcohol there.
I would say also the Super Trooper guys are this. I agree. Super Troopers is a stoner movie, but the Broken Lizard guys, I should say, like Beer League is obviously not a stoner movie. It's Beer Fest. What is Beer League? Well, Beer League is a different movie. Beer Fest is which I did see in theaters. That's a beer drinking movie, and
it's hilarious.
Club Dread or Club Dead or whatever that movie. Like I would say not all of their movies. They are not like the modern day Cheech and Chong in the sense that it's not all like smoke up, watch this movie, even though you may. But I think like Beer Fest is a movie that maybe you would just kill.
Yeah. No, they really just make comedies, but this for sure though to me is a stoner movie.
All right, so I generously accept your designation of Dazed and Confused as the winner of the first criteria. Let's move on to number 2. I think this will be good conversation as well. How well does it hold up?
Ooh.
I'm going to let you guys tell me how well Dazed and Confused holds up, because part of me is I don't think he's... Well, you know what? I'm not going to defend it. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, you already know.
Well, I'm not going to defend it because it's a movie made about the 70s, which I don't think he was looking to gloss over. I think he was looking to kind of tell it like it was. So just... like seniors don't go around paddling kids with a...
There's so many felonies in this movie that are just treated as mischief. Like someone shoots at a car full of teenagers with a gun. Like they break mailboxes, which is actually really serious. There's child abuse.
Don't fuck with the postal service.
Yeah, don't fuck with the postal service.
Have either one of you ever smashed a mailbox?
No, that just seems like a movie thing. That like
I haven't done anything like serious.
Have you?
I've been in the car with some people who've done it, and I'm like, you guys are why am I here?
The risk to thrill ratio doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't hold up.
It's very stupid.
Yeah.
Also, I've seen what was it? There was like one thing where someone had a reinforced mailbox in like some show or cartoon over the years. Someone takes a big swing at it, and then the mailbox doesn't give, and then like the reverberation through the bat. Like I was like, I don't need to be messing with this. This doesn't look. Also, my suburbs. That also feels like an old thing in the past or thing in movies. How many people still have mailboxes that are right at the front of their property so that you could drive by in a car and reach it with your like that doesn't happen. Our mailbox was right to the left of our door, and that was how it went.
Yeah.
Exactly, mailman. Get on those fucking legs and start walking.
Maybe that's a like Midwest thing. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's tough because
Texas thing, big yards.
It doesn't necessarily glorify these things. It paints them in a neutral light.
It doesn't admonish them either. In fact, there's that scene where Mitch finally gets paddled, and it's like, "Hey man, you did it!" Like he's like almost proud of it. So I do acknowledge that there's a lot of like. Yeah, that's not the takeaway necessarily, but I don't think the movie's like trying to make you think like, you know, it's sort of like this was the age of it. What, Leonard, you're looking at me. What do you think?
No, I just forgot. I sang the wrong song for the montage where they're beating.
Where they're like no
more, Mr. Nice, and everybody's just like happy
beating
and, like,
this
the shit out of the children. You see his face, and he's like,
it's so serious.
Or what about that scene with Parker Posey, the head cheerleader, who looks like she's 12 years old, but she's just like, you bitch. She's just chewing out. And I'm like, this is happening on school property. Like
it all happened on school property. Yeah. And then they're like, go kneel down in front of the fucking almost adult senior boy and make weird sexual innuendos with him.
Yeah, there's a lot of
that was uncomfortable as fuck.
Seniors and freshmen thing, which I think even in like high school, when I was in high school, that was like, oh, that's weird, man. But like back then it was like, you know.
Well, it's real messed up because they're 17 and these incoming freshmen are like 13, 14, which is like, still a child.
There was a lot of shit that was very suspect, very uncool, and very things that like was very much a vibe killer and maybe taking you out of your high. So, you know, wasn't really enjoying that.
What took you out of your high? Like I
mean, all the things we just mentioned.
The rage, the anger, the violence.
There's so much anger and negative energy in this movie as well. It's just that's not what weed's about, man. It's about love, dog.
Yeah, but then you got that scene where like Matthew McConaughey enters the pool hall and they're playing like the Hurricane by Bob Dylan, and it's just sort of like, isn't that what you're
soundtrack?
Okay, now the soundtrack, the music and the vibe was perfect.
This is I wish we talked like in only one or two episodes last year about soundtracks, and I feel like I guess I already won pop culture, but the soundtrack.
Oh, you would have.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
It's incredible.
That was the redeeming factor. It was, you kind of did go in and out, like Leonard was saying, where you're sort of like, oh, this is like, I don't love that I'm watching this like 6th grader complain about his like weird like problems right now, but I do love the music that's playing, so that's a plus.
I personally, you know, holds up. I mean, there's some stuff which I'm not going to go like too hard at Super Troopers, because I think it never intended to be anything other than a dumb comedy. But there's some stuff where like they pull over like the German couple on the side of the road, and he's like feeling up the wife, who is the German couple is very sexual, coming at the cops. I get it. I'm just saying, like,
it seemed like there's plenty of consent in that scene.
Yeah. But in this kind of 2020 years, and Leonard, you brought it up, and I think it's interesting. Certainly would maybe flag more for you than for me, but like. I would say cops just goofing off, shooting off their guns and pulling people over when they don't deserve. You know, it's like that has. You look at that slightly differently now than you would have in 01 or 02 when this movie came out.
I argue
very much so.
that helps it though, because there's too many movies in the past that make the cops seem like cool or awesome, or like they're just doing their job. And this one is like, guys, cops can also be fuck ups. Like, let's not be afraid to make fun of them.
They're highway patrol.
Yeah.
So it's like it's also making the fact that like
they just give speeding tickets, really.
Yeah, there really isn't even a need for them, especially in their state in Vermont. It's like, all right, there's no need for us to have this. But they also shit on the city cops. They shit on the city cops very hard in this movie.
No, you're right. I think it's smart. And honestly, like everyone, show of hands, if anyone wants to see Super Troopers address, you know, systemic policing issues. I mean, of course, like if you're going to tell a comedy about cops, better to just maybe check that at the door. And like you say, they're state troop or they're highway troopers. They're incompetent. No one, you're not afraid of them because you couldn't fear them. And then the state troopers are the dicks, and they're the villains in the movie. So the villains are at least other cops. It's not like the villains are citizens.
Yeah,
God
exactly.
forbid, something like that.
Which is very smart of them when they were writing it. Obviously, it just is great. I don't know. It's just a great comedic
I think
film.
the least woke part of it, or the part that didn't hold up the best for me, was like the idea from the early 2000s of like annoy the girl until she says yes.
Yes, that's a
Just
good.
keep bothering her. She's way out of your league. She's expressed no interest. In fact, has asked you to leave her alone. But if you keep going with your goofy shtick, you'll get her. And I don't know. That was the one part where I was like, ugh.
Do you remember that cop, that character's name?
The redheaded guy?
I would say that doesn't hold up potentially, as there's basically one woman in this.
Name?
Yeah.
Ursula?
Yeah. I forgot that.
Her name's Ursula. I only remember it because Farmer wrote it on the sex doll.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it is. This is like typical early 2000s, like kind of bro stoner comedy. There's one girl. She's the pretty love interest. She has a couple moments where she puts the shotgun up by not
Sneaks
Rabbit.
up behind him.
Yeah.
With the voice changer.
Yeah, Foster. And she comes up behind him and she's like, bend over and spread your shit. Like, so she gets to quote unquote have fun with the boys, but mostly she's the love interest. She's kind of platonic. She's the state trooper, so she gets them intel. But like, it's kind of a thankless part, which comedies of this era were likely to do, is not really let the girls be funny, sort of just have them be like on the side. It's like, well, we need a love interest. Okay. I would maybe argue that holds up, whereas Dazed and Confused has a lot of, the girls are allowed to do a lot of things. There's a lot of parts where the girls can have fun too. And so I would say it's more equitable in that sense. But I will, as you gentlemanly seceded pop culture to me, I will say just the fact that Dazed and Confused is chronicling the 70s means by default it's not going to hold up that well.
Yes.
I could argue that's the point, but you know what? That's not the prompt I'll give you,
but
that's not the criteria.
Still say this. They could have chronicled the 70s and shown the era and even the last day of school. This doesn't happen everywhere. It's not like they could have done this without having the hazing in it. They could have made this movie without a lot of the stuff that was in there that was...
It feels true to a certain high school experience.
And there's also
though.
plenty of characters that go on like long existential monologues, and they could have done a long existential monologue more lampooning like the situation that they're in and kind of calling it out for what it was, as opposed to just being like an unbiased observer towards the atrocities.
It does call itself out though. There always was somebody to be like, hey, this doesn't feel right or doesn't seem right, but then they'd be like, but it's cool.
But this is the life. Yeah.
Like the part where he's like, hey, when he's talking to the teacher, when he's interrupting class, the female teacher, and the dude's, he's like, hey, you want to go after, later on, meet me in the club, blah, blah, blah.
I'll be legal over the summer.
And she just like looks at him and just like pats him on the head and then closes the door. Like she doesn't say anything to him. And I'm like, this is so wrong.
Yeah. And I'll,
but we've already made a decision.
We've made the decision. The decision is final. I think, we can move on and move quickly through number 3, our new prompt, supplanting Samuel L. Jackson,
who would have been great in Super Troopers
and would have been weird. He
could have been the Vietnam. He actually could have been great because the teacher does have the line where he's like, "My captain said to me, 50 men are going on this mission and 25 are coming back."
That was a great line.
Samuel L. Jackson could have crushed
great
that.
lines in Dazed and Confused.
Oh, Dazed is classic. Yeah. Just as unlikely in either of these movies, although Brian Cox winds up in Super Troopers, just as unlikely in either of these movies is our new so-and-so in this movie person for season 2, Gary Oldman.
I don't know.
No Gary.
I don't see Gary Oldman being in Austin, Texas in the 70s. I know he's a character. He's a chameleon, but I don't. He could have been a teacher or something, but it just doesn't seem like an obvious role for him in any
obvious roles. For fun casting, he could have been the guy that like yelled at them about smashing his mailbox.
That's true.
He could have done something fun with that moment.
He would have, and he would have had a long Texas drawl.
Or the guy behind the liquor counter.
Or the guy behind the liquor
counter. Would have had
more
lines, a few more lines probably. But as far as Super Troopers, I feel like he's the captain.
Yeah. Or
Brian
the rival
Cox
captain.
Brian Cox. Either one.
Yeah.
I think
because I think we got to think about where Gary Oldman was too. Gary Oldman in 2001 was not a a young man. He wasn't in his 20s, but he also wasn't. He would have been like maybe 40. I don't know. We could look up how old Gary Oldman is, but he was not yet Gary Old Man. So I think he wouldn't have maybe made as much sense for Brian. I would say like he might have been more fun, also because he played a lot of villains in the 90s. Before he was Harry Potter's uncle and Jim Gordon in the 2000s, I think it might have made sense for him to be one of the state troopers. Although we like the guy that played, we like Commandant Spangler, but like that might have been a role for him too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or maybe one of the kinky Germans.
Could have been the German.
Yes, yes. I actually take it back, Austin. You're correct. I think Gary Oldman as the kinky sex German would have been the best use of him. That would have been incredible. Especially since we talked about it with Chris in the last episode. Gary Oldman likes sometimes just being in like. Maybe not movies like this, but like True Romance. He likes sometimes just taking the weirdest small, sometimes just a one scene part. And so that would qualify for this.
Okay, well, so I need to get more well adjusted for this criteria. So we are about to go on a little holiday break between episodes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to watch like a bunch of Gary Oldman films.
Okay.
Yeah, and just watch True Romance for sure.
I've never seen True Romance.
You might not recognize which one Gary Oldman is. When it comes to Gary Oldman, it is the most bizarre, over-the-top performance.
I already know what it is from other pop cultural references. Mm-hmm. He's the Jamaican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen Leon, the Professional?
No.
He's great in that, too.
Great in that, too.
I'll give you a bunch of Gary Oldman movies.
There's some great ones.
Cool.
So what were we going to say? That's a wash?
Yeah, I feel like it's... I mean,
we don't usually award it unless the person is in the movie. I know we sometimes talk about like,
or it's like a blatantly obvious choice.
Yeah, that's true. But sometimes we penalize for that. Like, what was the movie? Like Samuel L. Jackson wasn't in Life, and we were like, how? So we couldn't give it to Life.
It's a wash.
It's a draw.
Yeah, because
it's a wash.
I would have tried to take it last week if it wasn't for Gary Oldman being Jim Gordon in a later Batman movie, but not Batman Returns. So that brings us to criteria number 4, stats. That's box office, reviews.
I got him.
Austin takes the lead, man.
Austin is our most prepared guest.
He's more prepared than we are.
Well, I wanted to be tangibly useful, and so I made myself tangibly useful. All right, so Super Troopers. They had a budget of $3 million.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They grossed $18 million in the U.S. and then some other countries chipped in and they got $23 million worldwide gross. So what an ROI.
Pretty successful for it made its money back and stuff, but also, and your numbers I don't think would have that in there, but we all know like this is one of those movies that came out in the era of like everyone getting DVDs and absolutely had huge home video.
Blockbuster was this movie's friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for the rating, it got a 7 out of 10 on IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes is incredible because it's 35% rotten with the critics and a 90% audience score. So that is incredible.
That is that's a 55% disparity between critics and audience. That's huge.
Like, I just don't understand why the critics don't like.
You have to
critics never like movies like this.
What it is.
This is about. Why are you giving it a 35%?
Like, because it wasn't trying to do what you want it to do. Like, it had a target and it hit the target perfectly.
And the jokes were good. They were good jokes.
Yeah, it was legitimately funny.
I just don't understand the 35%.
I'm just looking at some to support what Austin is saying. I'm just scrolling through the excerpts of critic quotes on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's the Globe and Mail said this 100-minute movie only has about 25 minutes of decent material. So that's a gut punch.
Burn.
Wow.
Burn.
Tears out at a refreshingly reckless pace, then gradually settles into a law-abiding speed, said some publication known as Groucho Reviews.
Okay.
And then the rest of them are all just like quote not available, quote not available, quote not available, except one review from a site Gone with the Twins. It says it's become somewhat of a cult comedy with a faithful fan base despite containing almost no sequences that are laugh out loud funny or memorably unique. That feels like a hater.
Needlessly mean.
That is targeted. Wow. That's ridiculous.
This is the kind of abuse that stoners have put up with for centuries.
I would almost argue, I mean, we'll see what happens in that, but like stoner movies are not meant to be respected. Like what's a high art stoner movie? Like Pineapple Express was well reviewed. Big Lebowski. Yeah, that's I guess the gold standard. But
Pineapple Express is just because it's such a big budget. It's just a massive budget.
I do think I'm planting my flag in the sand here a little bit when I say I don't think of Lebowski almost as I think of it as like a Coen Brothers movie. I think of it as like a serious like, and there's nothing against for that. Big Lebowski is great, but I am curious how many like I don't know that sort of weed culture, let's smoke and watch Big Lebowski, I guess it just missed me entirely. But have you ever gotten high and watched Lebowski?
Yes.
Okay. And is it a good high?
It's a pretty good watch. It's not like, it's like the right type of high. It's like, all right, it's like I'm going to smoke like a sativa and be like thoughtful and like creative type.
But there's also enough like just incredible visual sequences.
Yeah, I was thinking that
really high and just be like, well, this is cool because he's going under all these legs.
Yeah, the bowling sequence.
Yes, also that. Yeah, the imagery is very dope.
I find that movie hard to, and I haven't seen it in like 10 years probably, but I find that movie like hard to follow, like the actual plot of like what was happening with Tara Reid and that when I'm not high. So I do feel like it's got to be more of like just check off your brain and just enjoy. Jeff Bridges.
Also, the dude is a huge stoner, very chill, and I always from that movie, man, the nihilist. I never understood like why if they were true nihilists, they wouldn't give a fuck about any.
They wouldn't be after the rug.
Shout out to my man Flea, who played of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who plays one of the nihilists.
This makes no sense. You're not true nihilists. Fuck you guys. Anyways,
Austin, do you have Dazed and Confused stats for us?
I do. Dazed and Confused. The budget was $6.9 million.
Nice.
And 93.
Mm-hmm. In 93, so a slight difference because it's 93
Still low
versus
budget,
2001.
But higher, more of a production than Super Troopers 8 years later.
And it made $8 million worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
a bomb.
It bombed. No one.
I mean, if you make $6.9 million as your budget, it's hard to say it's a bomb, but no one saw it. Yeah.
It wasn't.
It
wasn't
like
a huge
the way
success.
This movie was.
So another movie that obviously attained its cult status, and it's
through television,
television rental, whatever.
Also, it attained its cult status, I think, because of what the people involved went on to do.
Linklater,
Matthew McConaughey, if he, not done any more acting, it wouldn't be such a big like, oh, this was his first movie. And if Richard Linklater had stopped making movies too, like you'd be like, oh, that was an interesting one-off. But it gained its cachet as like a launching point for such incredible careers.
I wonder, I don't know if we'll be able to find a reliable source for this stat, and it's not worth using the time on air to look it up, but I wonder, like, with home video and stuff, what would be the more profitable movie now, Super Troopers or Dazed and Confused?
I still think it'd be Super Troopers.
Well, it had a big head start.
Big head start with box office, so yeah, you may well be right.
And because the reason why I would say it's not is because so many people watch Dazed and Confused like on television. Like, I don't know what that syndication deal money is. I don't think it's crazy money. Not like the DVD sales of fucking Super Troopers were, after it came out. So, I don't know.
The reviews are an interesting story on this guy. 7.6 on IMDb, so 0.6 higher than Super Troopers. Rotten Tomatoes, the critics loved it, 92%. And the audience also loved it and gave it a 90%. So
same audience score as Super Troopers.
Same audience score,
but almost 60 points higher with critics.
It almost seems like the only audience was critics.
I'm looking. Did you guys ever see? This is not totally relevant, but did either of you guys ever see Everybody Wants Some?
No.
It's like Linklater's movie in the past 5 years. It's about freshman at like some Texas university where he's going to play baseball. And it's like him the first weekend he gets to college, meeting the baseball team and getting high and going to parties. And
excuse me, I have seen this movie.
I might have seen it.
It is so fucking good.
Right?
Oh my God, it's so fucking good.
So I almost picked that movie instead because I love that movie when I saw it. I think Dazed and Confused is like, you can't have that movie without Dazed and Confused because it feels like Dazed and Confused is the high school version and this was the college version. And I'm pretty sure Linklater played like college baseball, so that's definitely like
you should have chosen that movie over Dazed and Confused.
You think so?
Yes.
I feel like because that movie is more specifically jocks.
They smoke a lot less weed.
They smoke a lot less weed, but there's that scene with Wyatt Russell where he's like talking to them about like the space between the notes, and they're getting high, and he's trying to like there's that's a weed movie for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, we'll watch it.
So the stats are split because the money play goes to Super Troopers. And I guess they're tied on the audience score, and then just critically.
That sounds like it goes to
I think Super Troopers because the audience and they paid for it. They loved it. So
And they also just like wrote this themselves and got this budget to get. Like,
also, I don't know if Rotten Tomatoes.
It's a more impressive achievement for the Broken Lizard guys because nobody knew who the hell they were. Exactly. At least Linklater was coming off of a acclaimed. I haven't actually seen his first film, but there was some hype around him, and then the movie itself, when it came out, disappointed. I'm not holding that against it now, but I'll say that's enough of a distinction where we can move on, and I'll give you guys box office, no problem, or stats rather.
Give me box office.
Well, now we get to the ultimate question. I think it's the fifth criteria. It will probably close out the discussion anyway. I can win this one and tie it up, and then we can figure it out, or let's just get into it. But criteria number 5 is which is the, how did I phrase this? Let me see. Which of these is, why is your film the superior stoner movie, Leonard?
I feel like my movie is the superior stoner movie because it encompasses all things stoner. It encompasses good times.
What do you look for in a stoner movie? Actually, I should probably
good vibes. Good vibes for sure. Laughs for sure. Entertainment. You know what I'm saying? I want to see some people smoking weed. Obviously, weed doesn't necessarily have to be the entire focal point, but it should be like involved somewhat. If I'm watching a stoner movie, if I can get high and watch a comedy, I can do that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a comedy, but the fact that I am laughing is always better. And, it has cops, which is like, I don't know what it is about stoners, but stoners love to watch the show Cops. So there's this thing about it's like
yeah, damn, glad it's not me, dog.
That does sound true. Yeah,
it's like cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers, stoners and cops. Like we're not the robbers, we're the stoners, and
it's like cats and dogs, stoners and cops.
Exactly. So I just feel like the first scene, man, the 3 stoners in the car, and it's just like holy shit. Like you see stoners and then you see cops and you're like, oh my god, scared we're gonna get busted. But it's like, no, it's fun. Like these cops are fucking just as goofy as the stoners are, and it's like, holy shit, wait, what's going on here?
I like it because it kind of soothes some of that paranoia that you have sometimes. Like it kind of puts it in the back of your mind that like maybe my interaction with this cop next time will be goofy and hilarious. It won't be, but it helps soothe that paranoia a little bit.
But yeah, they're just like the whole time. They have this weed, and it's like weed is kind of like the focal point, but it's never like looked down upon or really even thought of as anything negative. And like
that's true. I guess the big bust, it's all weed, right? Yeah, so
it's all weed.
So there's weed throughout in the background of the movie. At least it motivates everything that the characters are doing. I guess I can't disagree with anything you've just said. I guess if I'm making my final pitch for Dazed and Confused, I would just say, again, like. This is like what times do you associate with marijuana smoking? I feel like the 60s are obviously is big one, but the 70s there was that kind of like, there was that post 60s rebellion where it didn't have the same maybe political drive, not the act of smoking weed, just of everything going on. It was everyone was kind of mellowed out. There was sort of we'd come through I wasn't there, but we'd come through the other side of the 60s. America had come through the other side, and it was a lot of kind of burnouts, and now you're sort of just sitting around and listening to music and going to school, and you're hating it, and you and your friends are like out in the summer. Like I don't think all of that has to do with weed, certainly, but I would say it evokes a certain era, or it successfully recaptures a certain era where that was just like
where white people could do whatever they want.
Where white people could do whatever they want, but that's really any era, Leonard.
Yeah. Thank you.
And your movie about cops doing whatever they want is,
yeah. I mean,
but it's that like I said, this may hurt my argument, but it's like it's a movie that you don't have to be high for to kind of get that feeling of like this is that's the time.
You could also, I think, something that gives Dazed and Confused points is you could play an incredible smoke along game with Dazed and Confused if you just were like, oh, we smoke every time the characters smoke. Like it would be a real good time. That wouldn't be as rewarding to play with Super Troopers.
And if you're just even like, if you weren't watching a movie or if you've watched it previously and now you're just like getting high and listening to the soundtrack, like I think there is a lot of stoner culture in this movie, even beyond the references to weed that are in the movie.
I completely agree with that. Like the soundtrack, good vibes. Like
it's called Dazed and Confused. There's a little smiley face in the A. You know, like the movie knows exactly what it's doing.
Yeah. But I feel like there's just too much negative energy. There's too many bad vibes. There's too many high killers that are in this film. To not saying that it's not a stoner film, but I just think that it's not the better stoner film because of that.
All right, well, you know, we're going to be deadlocked on this, Leonard. This is why we have a guest. Austin, we put it to you. Don't worry about, you know, you live with one of us and you don't with the other. So I understand.
It's fine. Every guest that I've known has not gone with my choice.
But maybe the third time is the charm. No pressure, Austin. That's why if you smoked before this, just so you could be a little bit more mellow of making this decision. But we put it to you. What is the winner of the stoner movie?
I got high almost the exact same amount for both these movies to even the playing field because I wanted to know.
That's very sporting of you.
Yes. I wanted to know, how do I feel during these movies under the influence of marijuana? And the movie that made me feel better and was more enjoyable, and the movie that I didn't have to create as many of my own jokes while watching, was Super Troopers, because it's just so fun and it's such nonsense and it's just a great time that makes you feel good while you're watching it, takes you out of, you know, whatever else is going on. And then there was some incredible moments, like notably the George Washington, like when he's talking about George Washington and how big of a stoner he was. And he's like, you got to check out the money, man. There's something weird going on with the money and it's green. Like that scene was incredible and I laughed really hard. But overall, there was a lot of like, I have to listen to teenagers talk about their problems, which I don't enjoy. Like I wished every moment that I was a child or a teenager, I wished I wasn't. So anything that takes me back there isn't my favorite time to revisit.
Totally fair. Well said. I would say also when I made this pick and I sent it to you, Leonard, I was on it pretty early, and I was like, I'm making a kind of a strategic pick. You know, I'm trying to like head you off of the pass and kind of give you like a hybrid movie, and I can see that maybe it doesn't end up being, you know, it's a little bit art house. It's a little bit.
The camera was incredible because it just floats through this movie in the most beautiful way, and there's a foosball shot that was incredible. Mm-hmm. It's a well-made movie that isn't as fun to watch high as Super Troopers.
Maybe a little bit of like what I've been saying about Lebowski, which is like it's a little bit like, is it too much of like a movie to not be a stoner movie, which I think we all agree is a specific type of film. And I don't mean to damn with faint praise to say about Super Troopers that sometimes the stupider, more just totally focused on comedy bits, whatever, winds up being the more successful.
I pulled a Quinn.
You did? And you know what? How did we start this podcast? By saying that Leonard was put on God's green earth to pick the superior stoner film and beat me. I don't have any business competing with you on this playing field, so I am happy to take the L this week. I'm not happy, but I will gladly take the L this week. I feel I deserve it, and even up this early season series at 1 win apiece.
One win apiece.
Austin, thank you so much for coming on. We will have you back on for the cocaine movie when we discuss Goodfellas and
Blow.
And Blow.
Yep, and I will review that the same way I reviewed this movie.
Just stay healthy before we do the heroin.
You know, I appreciate Austin being on. I feel like he, like I said, was the most prepared guest.
He came prepared.
He's the most prepared because he is an avid listener, and I appreciate it.
And obviously you like it. He's the first person that primarily you know more than me who you've brought on who hasn't knifed you in the back by picking my movie.
What did you like about season 1, Austin? What did you feel? What were your thoughts on season 1?
I really enjoyed which we kind of did a little bit today, but I really enjoyed when you guys would put Samuel L. Jackson in movies that he wasn't in, and I think it's great with Gary Oldman. That was really fun. You guys have a good rapport with each other. I think my favorite part of season 1 is I was extremely skeptical when Leonard was like, "Oh, I have a podcast. It's with just one of my other friends, and we review movies." I was like, "Okay, I have to listen to this because I like Leonard, but I'm going to be bored and I'm not going to like it." And I was completely wrong. Like your flow through the podcast is really easy to listen to and fun to listen to you guys like argue about. So I think the thing I like most is you two. Wow. You two beautiful souls.
I was not expecting that answer.
I'm in love.
I paid Austin $50 to come on to the podcast and say these good things.
Actually, you owe me money for lunch.
Yeah, I think you got it, Leonard. You can send a little bit, or rather, Austin. Whoever sends whoever money for rent, Austin. Leonard should cover some of Austin's this month. Next week we will be back to talk about what's the prompt next week, Leonard?
Oh man, I forgot.
This is
classic
stoner movie list.
Next week's prompt is, I'm very excited. It's gonna be best video game movie.
Video game movie. So that, I guess, all of our prompts are kind of open for interpretation, but I understand that to mean a movie based on an existing property that was originally a video game.
I'll be choosing the Ninja Turtles.
Okay. I think I'm going to pull a fast one on you. And oh, wait, are you joking?
No, I mean, I'm just joking because it's like originally a comic.
Ninja Turtles a video game?
Ninja Turtles is a video game, but it wasn't a video game before.
I know what movie I'm giving you, and I'm very excited about it. I'm going to tell you off air to save the surprise. And you might tell me it's a little bit bending the rules, but we'll deal with that when we get into the episode next week. For now, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Austin, again for coming on, and we will see you at the cinema.
The cinema?
So just the image of smoke kind of filling that projector light screen in a dark theater.
Yeah, it's like a dark theater.
And we're out.